You hear us? Christy, do you see us? No. Can you refresh? You did? Okay. Yeah, wait, she's coming.
Might be a different link.
Yes, we're on.
We're on. Woo!
Woo!
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and after the pledge, we'll remain standing for a few minutes of silence. We'll take a few minutes of silence in memory of Kay Williams. Thank you. We have an adjustment tonight, an agenda adjustment, and without objection, we're going to move 7.1 ahead of 6.1. And we'll move on to consideration of the minutes. 2.1, to approve the minutes of March 26, 2025, school board minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. We have no petitions and communications tonight. We'd like to open the floor for a public comment. Please remember, no names are to be used during public comment. If anybody would like to come up. Is there anybody online? All right, seeing no comments, we'll move on to reports. 5.1, superintendent's report.
Yeah, so what I'm going to report on is obviously the approval of the SPS closure. Obviously, we were pleased to see all three towns supported the closure. And so today we met with the different staffs. I met with Sabattis Primary, and then Jenny Hudner met with Carrie Ricker, and Jan LaValle met with Libby Tozier. And part of that discussion, especially at Sabattis Primary, was just checking in with that staff. You know, this was a hard day to, arrive at the school. A couple of them have been there over 30 years in that school, and some have just transferred there. And so we recognize that's their family and that's their home, and we want to make sure they're feeling supported and appreciated for all their work. And we talked about room assignments, so I think that helped a little bit of, okay, I'm moving, but as you know, the first grade teachers will be going to Libby Tozier. The kindergarten team and with Jan LaValle and the other staff, just like what is best to make this a strong community with first grade coming in. And so we talked about first grade will be in the kindergarten wing, and the kindergarten will be in the pre-K special ed art area, so that the kindergartner together, the first grader together, but we're one. So I think they appreciated the thoughtfulness around Libby Tozier really being thoughtful about where they're located. So they appreciate that. Then with the Carrie Ricker, that would be our second grade staff going to Carrie Ricker. So they got their room assignment. They'll be on the first floor. So recognizing that third grade is also moving, they're moving to the second floor. And so I think they felt like, okay, there's where our classrooms are going to be, and how is that all going to work. We talked about packing. Samantha is taking the logistics part with Mark Taylor. So they're really thinking about how are we packing, how are we getting them boxes, how will they be labeled, how will they be stored, and our goals about what's going on construction and cleaning. And so really talking to the staff about what are their needs. One person said, I hope we're getting painter tape because that's easy to come off, on and off, different size boxes, things like that. We will be planning a type of celebration for Sabattis Primary. We haven't gotten there so far, but, thinking about an open house so that people can come in, One of the teachers also went there for 8th grade, so she's like, not only did I teach there, but I also attended. And so I think it'll be nice for parents and families and alumni to come and see the building and take pictures or whatever before it's completely cleaned out. So, that school obviously has a lot of history and a lot to celebrate, the impact it's had on students over many, many years. And so we want to honor that. But we also, we have a short window here to get everything packed, moved, and then put up. But also want people to know they do plan on having some step-up days for the students. So the exciting part is our first and second graders are going together to Carrie Ricker. So that's nice. So they can go for their step-up day and see what their school's going to be like. So we're off to a start. There'll be communication with the families, just to say this is what's going on as we settle in. But I want to give you an update that people are working hard to support this big transition.
Thank you. 5.2, the financial report will be done April 30th. We'll move on to directors' reports. Norma Jean isn't in tonight, so we're going to move on to 5.3B, Mark Taylor, Operations Director.
Actually, I think I'm going to jump up in front, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Take Norma Jean's place, and then the rest of it should follow the order.
Okay, great.
Sorry about that. So a couple updates from my office. I just learned how to make this full screen, so hold on. We've been learning new tech things today. So an update on our multilingual learners. We do have some applicants. I'm very excited to report for the position that's been open this year. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to fill it and have a teacher in that position next year. We want to give a big welcome to a new family that arrived right around February vacation from Turkey. So our ed tech is supporting those students. This brings a student to the middle school. And so the person who's filling it in the library right now is doing a great job supporting the middle schooler. They're getting to know each other very well. So, and just a big thank you to everyone who continues to provide support to those students. A note about gifted and talented. As you know, we've shared with you some of the things we've done this year for the GT art students because the schedule wasn't allowing for them to have their GT art class in grades 3 and 4. So the most recent adventure happened on March 28th. We had 2 author illustrators that came and worked with our 3rd and 4th grade GT students. I made sure to get the students a copy of the book from each author, and they had a little signing. So they have signed copies. The authors wrote these notes to me when I reached out to do some follow-up, and so I wanted to share them with you. The authors were Jamie Hogan and Russ Cox. And so Jamie said, "Your students all shine. I challenged them to draw a small animal object from direct observation, and they made wonderful drawings." And Russ said he had a great time with the kids. They were so much fun and full of wonderful energy. And thank you to the Carrie Ricker staff for helping out and accommodating them. And here's a couple pictures for you. So those are the authors and a little bit of work sample from the students. So my other piece tonight is a little bit about assessment. So it's hard to believe. It feels like we just did winter assessment, and now it's almost time it is time for spring. So all of a sudden I said to Katie, wait a minute, it's spring. Anyway, so this is a little bit of looking back and some looking forward combined into one slide. So I wanted you to know that we did a lot of work with our winter data. So we did some review with administrators. I had a deep data dive with my instructional coaches. There was a lot of building level data review. After we looked at the data, I did a variety of different kinds of professional development sessions for teachers to help them use that. So I was at the middle school, I was at Carrie Ricker, I was at Sabattis Primary, just working with teachers on how they could best access and use the data to inform their instruction. We also have been looking at the NWEA data and comparing it to other data like classroom assessment data. And for primary students, we've been looking at DIBELS and just kind of crosswalking those so that we really feel more comfortable with having an accurate picture of where students are. It's always challenging if you use just one piece of data. And of course, we have been using it to adjust interventions for kiddos. So with all that said, we're now on the door of spring assessments. Actually, today was the day that the high school, third-year high school students took the science assessment. So in the spring, the science assessment is given to grades 5, 8, and 11. The windows are different this year. They moved the 11th grade window early so it wouldn't interfere with AP testing for juniors. And then grades 5 and 8, their window isn't until May 12th. That's when that opens. And then just like the other assessment windows, the students are taking NUIA or the main through year. And so that window opens the 14th of April, which is right around the corner, which is why most of my time in the last few days has been assessment setup. So that's it for my updates. Any questions? Okay, let's see who's next. Mark.
All right, Mark.
Good evening. So facilities have been very busy. What's that? What did you say? In there. Yeah, thank you. Facilities have been very busy. Of course, last night after the big vote, we got a lot of planning to do, and plans are in place, of course. We've been working very hard on the SBS planning. That's pretty much top of my plate right now. I have, in the last 6 weeks, I've made it into every room in every school. I think that's very important. I've got to see a lot. Some things you don't like, but, you know, it is what it is. But I'd like to lay eyes on it, and it was it was an eye-opener. Libby Tozier, we had installed new lights out back to the back entrance. We did that for safety reasons at night with activities, very dark, pretty sketchy. So we just made a couple little improvements that didn't cost a ton of money, but hopefully that's made some differences, and it seemed pretty lighted, and safety seemed a lot better out there. We've really been focusing on some head custodian meetings because, of course, you know, with these moves and everything coming up this summer, we need to be on the complete same page. We got wonderful head custodians, and they love to be informed, so that's pretty simple. I've also reached out to all the building principals, and I'd asked about building cleanliness and what they felt, you know, are we doing well, are we doing poor? I got rave reviews. I heard back from everybody, and everybody said they're very satisfied, and they felt the custodial staff's doing a great job with the buildings. Spring facilities and assessing winter damage. I've been on top of that now that the snow's clearing, like to walk around the buildings and just see what's going on with anything. It could be roof to a pavement issue, but our eyes are on this stuff. And of course, with the head custodians, we're planning good walkthroughs with the whole property. That needs to continue. The more we walk the properties, the more we know and the more we can improve. We're getting contractors ready for big projects going on. We got the SBS closing, so projects are starting to really come fold now. They're going to come quick, and we have this little window of opportunity, of course, from June to the mid-August to get this stuff done. And then I just wanted to throw out a kudos to the custodian staff for the snow removal this season. It has been a challenging snow season for us, and they've done a very great job, and I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm very proud of them and the staff keeping the building safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, guys? Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to 5.3C. Justin Kelleher. The slides on the Okay.
I'll be short and sweet tonight. So we got the DEF delivered at the high school in the shed. Tomorrow we're getting the pump delivered, and they'll be going over there with the drivers just to make sure everybody understands how it's working and whatnot. Now that we have the news from Sabattis Primary School, I'm going to be taking a deep look into restructuring the elementary runs to be effective and make sure that students are on the buses for the least time as possible, but we're still getting everybody home safe and sound. So we'll be doing that over the next few months. We'll be introducing a new routing software as well. That includes a parent app there, which is a little picture of what it could look like on the parent side. So yeah, does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Exactly. Oh, special ed.
Let's keep it moving. All right. So I have two quick topics tonight. The first is professional development. On the January workshop day, literacy coach Becky D'Alessandro presented on a topic for us, reading development, a crash course for our K-2 special education teachers and ed techs. The K-2 special education staff spent time digging into foundational reading skills, discussing instructional strategies, working in their teams, and reflecting on lessons they've worked on with their students. We definitely plan to continue this next year. We think it's really important for our department. And the last thing is to talk to you about a school psychologist position. Before I kind of go through the slide, we have good news. We did have a really strong candidate that we interviewed last week. I'm meeting with them on Friday, and hopefully we can wrap that up because I think it will be a really beneficial position for the special ed department. So just quickly, currently I think most of you know we have our psych services provided through contracted services model. So for the most part, they just come in and complete evaluations and leave. And so we don't have this ongoing like consultation. So having someone in district will be really helpful for that. And just some of the reasons we were looking at moving this direction was just staff feedback. Again, more readily available to talk about student needs, consistency regarding evaluations and eligibility, and programming. So being in the district full-time, they'll be able to get an idea of what our programs are, you know, how to support our students, how to support our staff within those programs. So, and budget-wise, it's neutral in the sense that we just use the contracted services money to hire a full-time staff. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next? Mr. Palmer.
Down. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Okay. At the last meeting, we talked a little bit about sportsmanship and how we were going to attack that. So this is an example of Biddeford High School. I talked with their AD, and he shared this information with me. Obviously, you can't read what it says, but I think that's something that I want to follow through with and put around the facility, primarily the gym areas, but also outdoors on the fields too. Does anybody want me to read it? Yeah. The other thing is we're doing the proactive coaching, which is a workshop that our conference puts on, Mountain Valley Conference at Winthrop High School. And I'm excited that we have over 20 kids that will be attending, athletes, as well as 8 coaches. So it's free to us. It's part of the conference dues. And we go over things like changing the culture of athletics at your school, changing the sportsmanship, talking about team over individual, things like that. So I'm excited for that to happen, and I'll report back to that with you after that happens. Spring participation, we're kind of outside. Mother Nature's been playing head games with us. We hour to hour. It looks like you can't get out, and then you can get out. But our lacrosse team did boys lacrosse go to Freeport yesterday and played in the snow. And the goalie was having a hard time seeing the white ball coming at him. But at least they got outside. So our numbers are really good. Softball, we're at 24, which will allow us to play a JV season as well. Baseball, we kind of anticipated that would be down. We had a big senior class last year, so we're at 18 with a new coach. Boys lacrosse, we're at 43 with our co-ops. That's a big number, so we have a varsity and a JV coach for that. Girls lacrosse, 18 is our participation numbers. At St. Dom's, they're the host school. We have 25 athletes combined, so we make up a lot of their team. Track, we have 10 that we co-op with Lisbon, and girls tennis, we have 7. Unified basketball, I think this was touched on either by Mr. Aliberti or student report, but this was our during the school day unified basketball game. You can see there's a big crowd there with the students there. The highlight of every unified basketball game is the halftime dance-off. So that was fun to watch. The Lewiston coach couldn't thank us enough for inviting them over to come over during the day. They want to kind of implement that at their school as well. We also had the opportunity to go to Maranacook and play a day game in front of their student body. So that's becoming more and more of a thing to get the exposure in front of the whole student body. So, and if you ask me, it's perfect because I can't even remember who won the game. That's the way it should be. Adult education. So we did a first aid CPR course recently. We did a bunch of our coaches. We did a couple community members. We talked about doing one for our bus drivers, maybe at the end of the spring or before fall, so that we can get them up to date with their first aid CPR. Credit recovery classes. I know we talk about that a lot, but what it is we have about 7 or 8 now that we're trying to finish up for the high school, and it's current day students who are recovering a previous credit in order to graduate on time. So if somebody struggled with a math class their sophomore year, but couldn't fit it back into their schedule or it just didn't go back to it, they come back to us as a senior, and we offer that class for them through the adult ed program so that they can graduate on time. And then we're preparing for graduation. It'll be Tuesday, June 3rd. It's a little bit later than normal, but I'm trying to also fit it in with my athletic schedule and trying to do it on a day that we don't have games so I can be at both things. But so June 3rd, 2025, and it's 6 p.m. I didn't put the time on there, but 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to 5.4, Administrator's Report. That will be April 30th. And then 5.5, Student Rep Reports. That'll be April 30th as well. And we'll move on to 5.6, Other Reports. And tonight I have Shelley and Tracy, and they're going to give us an update on positive behavioral interventions and supports across the district. You have to have Mike. Says me.
Can you guys all see it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. We were asked to create this board for our participation and for our participation in the Department of Education's cohort for PBIS, and we thought you might like to see it tonight too. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to share a little bit about PBIS and how it's being implemented in our schools. The heart of PBIS, I know it's tricky to see, is to identify our core values. The goal for all of our staff and students at RSU4 from pre-K through 12 is to be safe, respectful, responsible, and safe. From there, we define the expected behaviors for each school setting. Teachers are explicitly teaching, practicing, reteaching the behavior expectations. When staff notice students meeting these standards, they're encouraged to share positive recognition through I noticed statements, and also tickets. We have adorable little tickets there in the bottom right corner, and these tickets are common from pre-K all the way up through 12th grade. So those have led to many school-wide prize drawings with fabulous prizes and some extra celebrations too. So, also, we do some positive notes home and other ways that teachers and staff would like to recognize students. We began implementing PBIS in the elementary schools back in the year 23-24. And during that time, we saw that our administrator managed behavior referrals were reduced by 43% compared to the previous year. This year, we invited the bus drivers to join us in the PBIS effort. So you can see some bus artifacts over there on the poster as well. In January, we met with the drivers and helped them identify their behavior expectations for their buses. Students have been taught those expectations, and their positive behavior choices are being reinforced with what we call bus bucks. They're highly coveted little green pieces of paper. So far, our pre-K through 4 students have earned over 2,500 bus bucks collectively. Those go into drawings, and they get to have either a breakfast or a lunch bunch with a bus driver. Our amazing bus drivers are volunteering their time to do this on a weekly basis. So far, we've had 7 drivers join us, some for multiple times, and over 90 of our students have had the chance to celebrate their positive choices with a bus driver, including your Sunday. Yeah. And fun fact, since implementing PBIS back in January, we've seen a 67% reduction in bus behavior referrals on the school buses. So, cool stuff. There are a lot more PBIS practices within our elementary schools noted on the board, and maybe Shelley will keep it around here at the central office if you want to take a closer peek at that. Sorry.
So I just want to say, I want to remind you all that Tracy is in title-funded PBIS coach role. And so she's been working on this, I mean, you'd think it had been longer than just last year, but she's phenomenal, and she provides great support. But she's also here tonight, not just to share this, but to share some very exciting news. So I'm going to let her share that.
Okay. Our district has been recognized by the Northeast PBIS network as a gold level district. Yeah.
So as a result of that, there's a New England PBIS conference. It's in Mystic, Connecticut, in middle of May. And we've been invited to attend at a discounted rate, send some people at a discounted rate. We'll be recognized there for our work as a district. And this is Tracy's favorite part. And we get to like essentially present with some other districts our work and be on a panel, which Tracy's very excited about. But we will bring lots of information back from that experience and plenty of pictures too, I'm sure. So we just wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
Exciting. Thank you.
Oh,
That's
wait,
amazing.
the best part is that when she applied for the award, she applied for silver
Wow.
because she thought that was what we sort of would demonstrate, and they gave us gold.
Wow, we're gold. Very nice. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to 7.1 to approve overnight trip request to Adventure Bound Campground, May 16th to the 18th, Mountain Valley High School, June 17th to the 18th, Mount Katahdin trip, July 23rd to the 25th, and St. Croix River, August 4th to the 8th.
Good evening.
Hello.
How are we doing? I'm Tim Farah, phys ed teacher, outing club leader at Oak Hill High School. The lady to my right and behind me is our wonderful art teacher, Miss Kirsten Art. She's our co-advisor with me, and together we're leading these trips going forward. So.
Why don't you give a little
Overview. Okay, well, yes. The following request is a continuation of last summer's events. We have planned an intro-level course for those who are new to the outdoors with a real emphasis on skills that improve and enhance camping, hiking, paddling, and biking. So that's the request to go to Rumford. As you know, camping out in Rumford at night can be rugged. So we feel that's a great place, but that'll be co-directed with their outing club leader, Todd Papiano, also a main guide, and that's really a crash course for our newbies. That's what that is. The May 16th through the 18th trip up to Caratunk on the river is kind of the culmination. And next year we're hoping it's not during prom, because we had a lot of our seniors that were very disappointed. It happens to be the same weekend of prom. I think there were some mixed decisions on which way they were going, and I think prom won out, which is great. But so we've got some younger kids going on that trip, but that'll be coming up, like I said, May 16th through the 18th. And our second summer trip, it will be going back to Mount Katahdin, which was our most popular trip last year. And we had a great time with the group we had, and now it's time to take another group. And then the final one, we'll be going to the St. Croix River, which is the Canadian-American border. And something I haven't done, but we're going to be going with Todd Papiano and his crew from Mountain Valley. He's done this several times. This will involve paddling, camping, cooking in the outdoors, and bugs and smelling good and using an outhouse. It's going to have all the elements that come together to make it a great trip. So this went really well last year. We went on a hike yesterday in great weather. Every time we've gone this spring, there's nothing to see except like 10 feet in front of us with the weather we had. But we had a nice little hike yesterday, and we've done a couple of things already this spring, and we're excited to see what happens this summer. So open up for any questions you might have.
How many kids are you taking?
Well, it depends. The trip to Adventure Bound, we're taking 7 at this point. Mount Katahdin, the rest of them are about to 10 because that's basically what the van will hold. So, and that sometimes they're filled and sometimes they're not, depending on the time.
So it's
of the
different kids on different trips?
They're all, yeah. Well, there's one kid that comes to everything we do, but and it's kind of, which is great. And we have others that are able to do one, and then it depends on their interest level. Some of them, I think their parents just want them to get out of the house, and there's others that just have to fit it into their busy lives. So, but yeah, it's a different group. It's like yesterday was a bunch of kids we had never really had taken anywhere before, and it just fit into their schedule. And other times it's groups that come, like there's a couple kids that want to come every time we put something out, they want to go. So that was a very specific answer, but it's how do you join outing club is you have a pulse and you walk the halls of Oak Hill High School. That is one of our stringent rules. So so I have kids all the time. How do I get involved? I put them on the email list, and then they get the email, and we have a meeting. They sign up to do a trip, and then I may not see them again for for 365 days till we do that trip again. So that's kind of how it's worked so far.
Sounds like fun. Need a motion?
Are these still covered with grant money or?
So we're working on that. There's some budget money that we might build is pending, but no, that grant is gone. So we're actively searching for that next big chunk of money. But these are like the trip to Adventure Bound is $100 for each kid. That's a huge discount for anything that remotely, and they use it as a training weekend. Their staff, so they give a huge discount to us, our groups that go there. The other trips, we are, doesn't cost anything to camp out at Mountain Valley High School. So we're trying to do things that are smart. The budget we had last year was extraordinary. We were able to do maybe a little bit more, but we've got a lot of the equipment you need now. So we're not purchasing any new things. The big cost is food, and if we're at a campground, those are the two big costs that we have to account for, and that's pending a couple of little things. But I know. Working on it. That's the answer. Yeah.
Any fundraisers in your future?
Yes, but I haven't anything lined up yet. If you've got a great idea, I'm willing to listen to it. But yeah, if we have to do that route, yeah. And I don't want this to be. We were very lucky last year. Any kid could just show up, and it didn't cost anything. And I'm conscious of that in trying to choose things that are not cost prohibitive.
These aren't currently designed as credit recovery. They're just field
They
trips.
are no, they're not. I mean, that was part of the hook last year. We got nobody fit that pathway. I guess is probably the best way to say.
Okay.
So
Great opportunity for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Need a motion?
Yes. I make a motion to approve the overnight trip request to Adventure Bound, Mountain Valley High School, Mount Katahdin, and the St. Croix River.
Second.
Any discussion? I think we just had it. All those in favor? Have fun.
opposed? Okay, good. That's good. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to move on to old business. 6.1, to approve the second reading of the following policies. GBN, family and medical leave.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? No one's opposed? What's that? IMBAA, alternatives to biological dissection.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? JI, student rights and responsibilities.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposition? JJIBB, sportsmanship.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? All right, we'll move on. 6.2, to approve that the computation and declaration of votes dated and attached here to be, and it is hereby approved, and further, that the computation and declaration votes be entered upon the records of Regional School Unit Number 4. And further, that a certified copy of the computation and declaration of votes be sent to each of the municipal clerks with the regional school unit.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
And you need to.
Everybody needs to sign.
before you leave. Yeah, you have your name and.
Just one copy?
Yeah, one copy, we'll make a copy. Yeah, you don't have the.
We don't need to do it.
That's next week.
All right, we're going to move to 6.3 to continue budget discussion for the 2025-2026 school year.
Okay, so we're going to get started. I do want to start by saying, things that are coming up in the news and want to make a comment. I was up with my Maine Western Superintendent's Group and talking with the towns Monday. It was brought, Sharon kind of shared what was coming through her association, and so there was discussion at our association today about the people's veto. And so you're going to hear more about it, and I think people just need to be really understanding what the people's veto means. And so what we're understanding, and we'll be getting more information from our association. You'll probably get information from the board association side as well. So a petition has been pulled out, taken out to get signatures to veto the budget that has been approved. Sharon, please correct me if I get it wrong. Approved by the legislator at this point. So what's happening is they have till the middle of June to get approximately 67,000 signatures for this. If they get that and then put that, file it, that would mean that government would shut down. So there will be no state funds going out at all. And that would start July 1st, and we would not have any money coming in until the November referendum vote. So it would be a referendum, and they would vote whether that budget goes forward or the budget does not go forward. So that puts us in a little, obviously, issue, which would mean we would not get our $11 million allocation. It would put pressure on the towns around having money. We've been discussing around, those RAN, which is those protections to have to take out RAN. However, there isn't like a definitive that if this were to go through, would we get our money back, right? So there's a lot of pieces to this. So people may want to really consider whether they sign that people's veto because of the impact it could have on our communities. But there's more to come on that. But there's major concerns regarding this veto. What I understand is it would be the first time that the people's veto would be used to veto a budget that has been approved. So a lot of moving parts, and I think it's making people a little bit nervous about how would we run the school departments. We have to pay salaries, we have to, programming, and it really shuts down the government. They wouldn't be paid either, so it would just be like everything's on hold. So more to come. There have been articles released on that today. I saw an article. The news has been talking about it, but just so people understand what it means. It would mean a shutdown. Not a, like people said, it's not a furlough, it's a complete shutdown. So just be aware of that. You might see more on that. As I learn more information, we'll send that along. But I just wanted to tell you there's a lot of things moving right now on funding.
Katie,
Mhm.
on that piece,
Yes.
so we couldn't pay staff, we couldn't pay bus drivers, so would we even open schools? Would they just
That would be
stay
the,
home?
that's what the superintendents, we were wondering what we would do, right? Because we only have a certain amount of revenue
Right.
available, so we would have to calculate what could we even do with that revenue that we have. There's a lot to this. It's just people have to be aware. It's not as simple as just sign something. Oh, well, we'll just sign it. Take it to the people. Well, it has consequences. But you'll probably learn more about that. But if you have questions or something gets said, or just send me an email, and then we can have it looked at. So jumping in, I just wanted to give that update because that was new information for all of us this week. The budget discussion, I know Samantha, you're on call over there. I don't know if you're coming up to the table. But we have we're going to do the Sabatis primary update. We're going to go over your board request and then updated budget revenue. So I'm just going to keep moving through the slides here. The board request on slide 5, and I don't know if, oh, they are following me, good. On 5 is you wanted a budget that maintained the SRO and bring the budget to 3% increase only. So with the closing, now we know definitively what we're working with. And so we really talked a lot about where we could reduce to get to the 3%. And so we brought it down to 2.97%. And so categories we looked at is course reimbursement. So kind of looking at what did, when teachers took a survey, this is what I anticipate taking, but what do they actually end up taking? And so we did look at a reduction there. We looked at the special education cost center as well again, and looked at how has the tuition rates, because we predict where the tuition's going to be, and then we reflected on what has been our average cost there, so we're able to reduce in that area. Samantha, do you want to fill in the blanks? That trying to go off my memory here.
Another area that we looked at, NJ worked hard to
Oh, yes, there we
review some technology costs that she has for the upcoming year. So she has been busy negotiating with vendors and trying to bring software costs down. So there were some technology savings. We did receive earlier than anticipated our health insurance percent increase. So we were just under 14%. So if you remember correctly, we had budgeted 15%, and historically we have always kept in 0.5 to 1% above what that increase is to plan for anticipated elective coverage changes. So we reduced 0.75% of the 15% that we had increased over last year. So that was a reduction. Technology, the special ed tuition, Mark Taylor also reviewed his cost center maintenance in particular, and he put forward a reduction of a floor machine that he had intended to purchase, and is really going to work with his team to repurpose the machine he had mentioned last time from Sabatis Primary School and try to squeeze every ounce of life out of those other machines that we can before we move on to a new one. So those were the reductions that we identified, which were able to bring us down to 2.97%.
Okay, so those cost centers have been adjusted. And then you can see the tax impact. So we just repeated those slides. And of course, this is the one, so you can see that, which is now for each 100,000 that your home is assessed at. You have $79.24 for Litchfield, $85.23 for Sabatis, and $48.40 for Wales. The other, I don't know if you want to ask Diane how people feel about that before I go to that next topic.
So that puts us at a 2.97. How do people feel about that in the budget? Thumbs up? Scott, what do you want to see?
No, I mean, I'm impressed that it was able to come in even lower than we requested, so that's great. I mean, everybody wants to see no increase, but I know it's not possible, so especially today. Everything's more expensive, especially when we're looking at the insurance costs and the payrolls, and so.
Matt, what do you think?
Excuse me. I agree with Scott on the coming in lower than requested was nice to see. I wasn't here last week, but I had some questions or something I wanted to bring up about if at the time it was if we closed Sabat as primary, but now obviously we know that's going to happen. With the Dean of Students at Carrie Ricker, I was just, is that something that is required? Is that a position that is required based on, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry.
Based on enrollment?
Enrollment?
and
Yes,
Number of kids.
I think I had heard somewhere too, like the number of IEPs and behavioral. Is that a factor in that decision, or?
I think it's, when we look at our model, the Oak Hill High School has an additional support for student support. The middle school has 2 additional supports, and where Carrie Ricker is now going from 2 grades to 4 grades, it was adding additional support. So it's just, that's something we really value, is making sure students and safety and having that additional support. Remember, we took a position, a teaching position, to make the dean, so it's not an administrative contract. It's a teacher number of days and following that teacher's salary. So it's really during the school time, during the school day, support for students.
Okay, so it's not a separate full-time position being, okay.
No.
It's not a additional position added.
Okay.
It's a moved.
It was not a new position, exactly. We reallocated funds on purpose. We looked at, when talking with Jenny, and Jenny could speak to it, we talked about that position, and it would be great to have that additional support with the dean.
So the difference between a full-time teacher position and a dean position, salary-wise, benefits-wise, has got to be fairly small.
It's on the same scale, so it depends when we hire the
Tenure.
dean where they are on the scale of where the teacher was. So, but it's using the teacher scale, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're talking about $23 million, it's.
Right.
I don't know if even if it was eliminated, how would the percentage change or the numbers would change on this. Honestly, it would
Probably bring it down 0.5% or so. Yeah, because
think even that
a
much?
percent is, what do we say, 170? What's a percent?
So last year's budget was just over 22 million, so it's
Right.
220,000 roughly to bring it down 1%. So you're about 1/3% with that
Right.
amount, if that.
Right. Depending on the benefits, the salary, right, be close to $70,000. But at the same time, because you have to put all the factors in, it's the very thing we're talking about, how to support student learning in the classroom, supporting our teachers. That's
You mean
what that position-
the 70,000 would be the salary total?
Well,
not
it
the
depends
difference
where they are on
between
the
two.
scale. It
Not,
depends where-
yeah, I guess guesstimate, right?
Yes.
But that's the total, not the difference between the two positions.
No. Oh, no, no,
The
no.
difference between the two positions has got to be far less than that.
Correct. Yep.
Any idea what that might be?
Like Katie said, it all depends on who the hire is.
Who we
Yeah.
fill.
Yeah, so it's based on a person who, I believe it's an opening, right, that we will have next year. And so whoever fills that opening will comparatively land on scale.
Even, I mean,
Right. The position's staying with Carrie Ricker.
right.
Yes.
It's like $10,000, $20,000. It's not
Right, because
you know,
it's already in the budget. I think your point is it's already in the budget, that position.
the teacher position.
Correct. So depending, right, could be minimal change. Yes.
And remember too that if you were to make a reduction to a teaching position, we still owe July and August for our teachers in that contract. So you're not reducing a full year's position. You're reducing the 10 months in the new contract for a new hire.
Thank you for the clarification.
No, you're
Yeah, I think
welcome.
it's good too to retain. You're retaining staff. You through the move, we're not losing.
Correct.
And for that purpose alone, morale and whatnot. I mean,
Right.
And I also see the benefits at the middle school. Mr. Jack does a great job
Yeah.
in that position, and it's very beneficial.
Mhm.
I can see.
Definitely.
I was only wondering or asking.
You're
Because if we're going to keep the or if we're going to add in the SRO in shared responsibilities, would it be necessary to jump right into having that dean position or give it a trial type deal?
Right. Well, I think that's, something you could look at, definitely.
Yeah, we discussed that pretty lengthy
Yeah, we
last,
did.
Last meeting, and I guess there's a lot of similarities, but the one piece that's missing is the law enforcement piece and sort
Right.
of some of that stuff that the SRO brings. So, yeah, there's some crossover and some similarities, but
And the other piece is that the dean would be in the school all day, where the the school resource officer is moving around.
all the different schools coverage,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we have more than 3 grade levels now at Carrie Ricker. Next
Yeah, so
year
it'll be
4
pre-K, second, third, and fourth.
4 grade levels. So, and having the extra hands in there will be important.
Yeah, in terms of like direct touch points with kids, the dean, not that the SRO will not have touch points with kids. I think having that dean to be that extra layer of support for Jenny, but also for teachers and also for students it's when I think about like the best bang for our buck, like I think we'll see really a return on that investment versus other places that we could cut.
I don't know if I can say it, but it seems like that's kind of been a clean up some of our issues this school year. So that extra support may be a good idea there in that building, especially now we're adding to the student population head count, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
All right,
I'd like to say one thing about the budget before we move forward. I said the same thing last year. I really think less than 3% is good, but what are we going to do as a board? Where's our plan moving forward to ensure that next year we're minimizing impact again? Because we just went through a whole school closure, and it's going to be a very big help to the budget this year. But where are we going to be at next year, and the year after that, and the year after that? What items are we going to address? Where are we going to go so that we can try to stay within, minimize our annual increases?
Doug?
I was kind of just thinking of this. I know these numbers might be hard. 1 and 2 numbers might be hard last minute to get them, but what's our total paid staff number again? For like how many the total staff in the whole budget?
About 200.
About 200 or so.
Approximately, 220? He's saying total staff.
Yeah,
Staff count. Yeah.
253. And then
So 253 if you didn't hear that.
what's our total number of staff that reside in Litchfield, Wales, and Sabattis?
Ooh. We won't have that. We don't have that at the top of our.
No, I know. That's why I kind of prefaced with that's a hard number to get.
A lot though.
I guess
Yeah.
my guess would be rough. I guess like 60%.
No, I don't
I
think
think
that many.
Mr. Gayton had asked for this number
30%.
last year, the year before as well. I can get you that, but we do have a high residential population, I would say, compared to like urban centers that are near us.
I would say our support staff has the highest number per group that are from, the 3 towns.
From the 3 towns.
Why do you ask, Doug?
Yeah.
Huh?
I guess I was just wondering, like, everybody having a hard time affording stuff. Our budget provides income. I just was curious as to how many people, you know. At the end of the day, I always think of that is that, like, we are technically providing the livelihood for however, even if it's 30% of 250 people, that's still, you know, quick math, I don't know, one third, what is that, 80, 90 people? We're still providing the livelihood for 90 people.
We are
you know.
definitely the largest employer in all three communities.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a big thing to be said to factor in as when we're going through with the budget. And I think for us to say for the people that are going to be approving the budget is that this budget not only provides for the students, but it's providing for people that work in the schools that live off of the money that we are providing for them. So it's not just a one-sided thing, you know. Like, I think it's an important
Well,
factor.
we're taxpayer funded, right? And even if they don't live in our district or our three towns, they still pay state taxes and federal taxes, and we
Right.
receive those monies too. So
Mm-hmm.
I understand where you're going with it, but
Yeah, I guess it's their paycheck too, you know what I mean? So the money kind of comes back around
Sure.
in a way too, you know, it trickles back into the local.
So are we good on this part? I think. Right. So we have to move on now to.
So obviously, this was a big topic last meeting as well, which is the capital improvement fund. So we just want to, you know, reiterate again, why are we coming forward with this? So this is a way to take undesignated funds, so tax dollars that have been collected, just like everyone's budget, right? You plan a budget, and then you may have savings at the end of the year, and so you put that in your savings account to plan something that you want, that you know, you've saved up for that refrigerator, or you've saved up for new siding or new roof. It's the same thing, which is when we have undesignated funds, we now can allocate it towards things to help mitigate tax increases. Because if we don't have it in the budget, we're not raising the budget to pay for these items, which has been happening, which is when we're on the floor and people want to reduce, say, where do they go? They go to maintenance, because we don't want to reduce folks that directly impact students. So it's kind of a catch-22. So this is a way of having a fund that can address things that that won't raise the budget, address projects. So we want you to know what it would be for, to help plan for large expenses like roof replacement, our HVAC upgrades needs, technology improvements, and it goes through the board. So it's not a slush fund for the board, or for the superintendent's office to say, ooh, we now have this money, we'll go purchase this. This would be a decision around looking at our 5-year plan, looking at those items that have been identified to say, okay, using those funds, this is how we want them used. And so we've talked about the $150,000 to pay for upgrade with Libby Tozier, especially around their envelope and windows. We may decide after this that we're going to work as a board and say, is that still the number one priority with $150,000? Just looking at that. If we don't do that, so you see the big article, which is to establish it and then transfer $150,000 from our undesignated to designation, and then to expend it by the board approval, what the board approves it to be spent. If we don't do this, then we really believe we have to raise the budget $150,000. So we have to take care of some of these items. So we either do this or we put it in the budget. And so we really hope you will support this. Every year you can look at it. What can we afford to put in that capital improvement fund? You know, talking to the towns, they were all like, this is what we do to pay for a fire engine. This is what we do to pay for a replacement of a gas tank. You know, these are the things that they're not putting in their budget either. They're relying on their undesignated funds. So we hope you'll support it. If the board says, no, we're not going to do a capital improvement fund, we really need to support putting it in the budget then. And so we're open to more discussion. on that. So what we did put in is cost center total with the 150,000 in it would be 3.64%. Discussion.
So Katie, can you talk us through how funds end up being undesignated? Like, is it overage? So we've budgeted something and we've underspent because there wasn't a need or something was cheaper. Because I think there's some concern in the public that schools, not necessarily just RSU, but RSU4, but schools across the board are padding their budgets to be able to have these things. So can you kind of talk us through the process of how it's not a slush fund, but like how these undesignated funds come to be?
Yeah, so a perfect example is not filling a position. Like the multilingual teaching position is a great example. That hasn't been filled. It's been filled by a part-time position. So you have those funds. A social work position at the high school has not been filled all year. So those are funds. We've used some contracted service to help fill that. Those are examples. The course reimbursement, same thing. We expected based on a survey, and then if people decide they're not going to take courses, we may have funds there. So you don't want to budget so tight that if there was an emergency remember that year before, we suddenly had a boiler we had to fix in the beginning of the school year, we might not have been able to open. So a lot of the times, if you're too tight, you can't respond. Like we suddenly had an influx in enrollment and you need to add a teacher. Or, like the bus driver crisis we had last year, we had funds to raise our bus hourly wage. So that's what I think what's hard is we all have budgets, even our home, and we say, okay, we make this much money, these are our costs, but things happen and we may be left with a certain amount of dollars. By law, we can only carry 9%. So obviously, if we reach that threshold and above, we've got a return on it. You already have in the budget using unfunded designated balance to reduce taxes, which is about, was it 550? I want to remember, 550,000. A fund balance that we're using to offset taxes now. So
I'm wondering. So
Yeah.
if we built in, so looking at the slide behind you, if we built in $150,000 for this year, we may also have undesignated funds. So by establishing a capital, you're establishing those. You're taking from funds that already exist.
correct.
So you're not estimating,
Correct.
essentially. So like we're taking money that the taxpayers already put in versus coming up with a number of 150, and then there could actually, we might not have even needed to ask them for that
Correct.
money.
I know what you're
You know where I'm
going.
going?
Yes, I
So,
do know
like,
where you're going.
For me, as I think about this, if we as a board establish a capital improvement fund and we could do it year by year. So
Correct.
we're not bound to say, okay, we've established this fund, we're going to do it every
Correct.
single year.
Correct. You have the fund available. You decide whether you designate funds to it or not.
And
So
does it have to go to the floor every year once it's established?
you have to, it goes to the board for the approval of the amount, but not the fund. The fund is there.
Okay.
And then you would say, we're going to put 250,000 in it, and we're building up to replace the HVAC system at the high school.
So is it an article at the public budget meeting every year?
Yes.
So if we as a board this year said, okay, we're going to move to establish this fund, Article 18 it was, and the public comes to the public budget meeting and says, no, you're not, it ends there.
It ends there. Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. They could vote the article down.
Robbie?
Sam, can you explain to the rest of the board and the public how we get to those funds through the auditor? That we just don't have those funds available at the end of that budget year, right? We have to wait till the audit, and then they let us know.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the year, we estimate our fund balance based on our incoming expenditures and our outgoing revenues. But our audited fund balance, which is what we should rely on, financial best practice, comes after the completion of the fiscal year audit, which is usually done in December. Was that the answer you were looking for? Yeah.
Doug?
So Article 18, this capital fund balance, that needs to be voted on by the public every year to continue to have it. So if we had it for 1 year, is that what I'm understanding?
No, once it's established, they're not approving the established, they're approving how
The
much
money.
is going to go into it.
How much goes in it?
How large that capital improvement
Right.
fund is.
You know how it reads right here, shall the board be authorized to establish and that would be removed and would say, shall the school board be authorized to transfer up to blank, whatever that amount is, from available fund
So
balance.
the public, if they so willed, they could make that zero.
Correct.
So there's still public input from it.
Yes.
Just I'm trying to clarify, I guess, for myself
Yeah.
and anybody else that there's still involvement in that. It's not like an open bank account. Okay.
Right. When
do
you
we
vote,
do we notify what in the article what specific improvements are slated for that money, or is it just to approve X number of dollars?
it's approved X number of dollars.
So we don't have X number of dollars for X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
There's no, it doesn't tell them that.
Correct.
So again, okay, so
So we could, like at the budget meeting on May 14th, once you establish it, we have that. We've talked about it being Libby Tozier, so we would explain to the public this 150 is for, the board has discussed it being for this.
so then how does it differ if we say we're to put $150,000 in a capital improvement fund versus just simply asking for putting it in the maintenance budget and asking for the $150,000 for the projects we need? What's the difference?
You're raising the budget and you're raising more taxes.
But you are either way you're doing that.
No, you're
No.
taking money that's already.
Okay, then tell me this.
Oh.
So why not put it into the budget under the maintenance line and then just use your fund balance to reduce for the same amount of dollars?
Oh, we discussed that. Here would be the challenge. If the budget gets reduced, if the maintenance line gets reduced 150,000, then the money is gone. I mean, it's if you we talked about that as an option. We could put the 150 in and then raise up to $700,000 use of fund balance,
Correct.
which you could do.
Which so the percentage at 2.97 would stay the same.
It would the percent would be, the taxes would be different. Okay, so see this slide here, the 3.64%, that would be the increase of expenditures. But we have an increase of revenue, so the taxes collected would be the same. So this slide, let's go back. This slide would be the same, except we didn't adjust it because we raised it. Whoops, sorry. Which way am I going?
I think she's. Okay.
If this one, 3.64%, okay, I'm on it. Okay, 12, sorry. I'm on, that's why I'm clicking through. On slide 12, the expenditures would go up to 3.64%, but the taxes would not be increased.
It would actually decrease because you're adding another $150,000 towards that.
But it,
No, but you increased the expenditures. So, okay, the taxes would be neutral, right? Because if I have to raise $1 million, right? But I just added 150, but now I've added 150 over here. The million still needs to be raised, even though the expenditure went up.
The bottom line increase would be 3.64.
Yes.
But what would be the contribution from the taxpayer would be 2.
Correct. Yes.
No.
No?
It would be the same as the budget version being at 2.97. So
That's what she-
tax neutral is a good way. I think that's what Katie said.
That's what she just
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
She said the taxes collected for the 2.97.
Oh, collect. I didn't-
Yes, that's what
Sorry.
she said.
Yes, that's
Collected.
okay.
That's what you, yeah. Yes.
So, I mean, in your example, very different because a household, the income to a household is earned by the people in the household.
Correct.
Whereas we're receiving tax dollars, and so the extra surplus, let's say that we have the extra, is not really, ours to take and put towards these other items that come up. I am definitely in support of a rainy day fund. I think that's important because there's always going to be unexpected things that happen. But the piece where you're taking, you're essentially, it's not a slush fund for administration, but it becomes a slush fund for the board because you can put whatever you want in there. Yes, the town approves the amount, but they don't know what it's for. Versus if you just simply put it into the budget, the people know what they are voting for. They know what they are spending their money on.
Correct. This says, it doesn't say for anything. It says for purpose of maintaining school facilities
Right.
and acquiring capital equipment. You can't purchase a person. Like
Sure.
you can't do a position.
No, but maybe there's items that are going to be purchased that necessarily the town may not necessarily agree with. Like leasing a pellet boiler that we pay for, as an example. I mean, just if we put a new roof, it's definitive. It's it's a tangible item with an amount that's being voted on, versus doing it this way.
I can check the wording
and
on
again-
it.
And with the fund balance
sorry.
being able to fund items, I don't see the purpose of the capital.
I think if we have a really well-crafted capital improvement fund, it can be an asset to our district because it runs, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, the school year is July 1st to June 30th. If we need something done and it's beyond that, there's no money to pay because it only goes from July to June. I mean, if we have a mission statement and we're really transparent about what we're going to spend that money on, I think that could be an asset to our town. The reason we're where we at now, where we are at now is because we have had so many cuts to maintenance. It's insane. We have to repair so many things. I mean, I was in the school and, I know I'm like, that didn't get fixed. I would fix it. My father would come and do it. It's like little things like that. You don't think it's just a little thing, but over time that becomes a big thing.
I personally trust the board to make the decision what is going in there today. This board, I'm thinking future. What's the future board going to look like? What's the future administration going to look like? I don't know. That's why I'm a little nervous about making that change.
Matt?
I think Teresa was first.
Oh, Teresa?
Can it be specified each year when we present it at the public hearing that we want $150,000 for it to be moved for the specific thing versus it just being open-ended?
I don't know if I'd have to, probably not in the question, but absolutely when we go to the hearing, like next week when you approve it, that could be also on the agenda to say that 150,000 will be towards Libby Tozier's window and envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. That you're the one making the decision, right? And then when we go to the public, we can say the board has agreed that it would go towards Libby Tozier's envelope. And the reason we picked 150,000 is the quote for that was about 132,000, and we're leaving a little wiggle room for possible price increases. So that's why we chose 150. We didn't come in and say we want to take, there was a reason for the number.
Matt?
So at the special meeting at the high school, the voting public can say $0, correct?
Correct.
And that's it for the year for that article. What then happens when we have a roof problem or a boiler problem? We're still going back to the voters at referendum, right? For large.
You mean if something were to happen, we would have to find the money in the budget that was approved, right? Like the boiler, we had to look at what did we have for funds, and there were projects that didn't get done that we had planned because we had to replace the boiler.
Yeah, I'll say so. The boiler goes down. We have to find the money.
Mm-hmm.
usually we have to go, for something that big, we have to go to the voters for approval?
We didn't for the boiler,
Okay.
no, because it's part of our maintenance.
Yeah.
So we took our maintenance dollars and put it towards that,
Okay.
because we had to.
But something else didn't get done. because
But
of
yeah,
that.
then other things didn't get done.
Okay.
So that is the challenge. Yes, if suddenly our roof collapsed,
Yeah.
God forbid, you would have to probably go out to referendum. But, or you'd have to take a loan out, go to bond, and still have to referendum. I mean, it's a challenge if you had something like that. That's when people get into emergency situations.
I mean, I'm torn on this. From a personal standpoint, I think any unspent money should go back to, whether it goes back to the taxpayer, or it gets rolled into the next approved budget to offset taxpayer costs. At the same time, we have a lot of aging, obviously buildings, but equipment and everything. Taking that decision away from the taxpayer, I'm conflicted.
You're not really, because they get to vote it down. Correct?
Well, that's why I asked. So if they
could
vote
vote it down.
$0,
They could vote it down.
They could vote
So-
this article down.
Christy?
Yeah, so historically, we have watched our building facilities and maintenance line get decimated year after year after year. And like Matt and Scott, I'm also conflicted. But I think we as a board put the idea to close the school to the voters because we knew we needed to make some significant investments. And I feel like the only way that we can guarantee those investments is to establish a capital improvement plan and put it to the voters to see if that's how they want us to proceed. Because I think if we put it in the facilities and maintenance line, they could cut 150,000 and then we will not have the funds to be able to do what we need to do for Libby Tozier. And I hear your point, Scott, about like you're not worried about this board, but what's the precedence that we're going to set when we do this? And I do think earmarks and potentially how we report out on this financially would be something I would want to push back on the finance committee, because if we are earmarking for very specific things, we should be reporting out on those very specific things every time, so the taxpayers can see the trail of how it's being invested and used.
And what you're advocating for is these earmarks are somehow written in the language so that it has to be put in
Yes.
every year. And a future board cannot change that.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Be very, very transparent about what we're doing so that they know exactly where the money's going. And I do know there are a lot of school districts that do have this.
Yeah.
And our towns have this.
Correct.
So if we have buildings that need maintenance and we're constantly decimating our maintenance budget, again, I'm going back to it, where are we going to address the budget concerns in other areas so that we can maybe start addressing our maintenance budget? These are things we need to start discussing and thinking
Yeah.
about.
I mean, what you have a challenge of, because you're a rural community, right? You don't have a municipality that bonds every year and gives school departments $1 million for capital improvement. We don't have that luxury, and that happens in municipalities. You go in with the city, you bond a certain amount, and then you have a bond payment that's in your. So we don't have that. So this is we have to grow our own capital improvement fund to address those big items that we're unable to do. So this does clearly say it's maintaining school facilities and acquiring capital equipment. And we have on our website our 5-year capital improvement plan. I think we highlight that on May 14th. You know, that here's what our capital improvement plan, and they'll see there are some big ticket items on there and there's some smaller ticket items. And we're tackling a smaller ticket item around the envelope and windows for Libby Tozier. And I think that's doing the right thing.
Robbie?
Yeah, I think this is actually long overdue, for the fact is that we can plan ahead for projects and know that if it takes us 2 or 3 years to collect the money will be there, and the taxpayers, because it's coming out of undesignated fund balance, we're not having to raise that money through the budget in order to spend it. But consequently, we know we got one, we're close to Battis. Now we have Libby Tozer we have to maintain, because we know we're gonna be into that building for a lot longer than what we hope to be in the building, and it does need significant improvement. It's gonna need a roof in 5 years, 10 years, it's gonna, so consequently, we're looking ahead and planning for what projects we got coming down the road, and I think if we can make it, black and white, what we have to spend it on, and then the taxpayers have the option every year to figure out what we're gonna put in there, depending on, maybe we need a roof sooner than 5 years. We don't know that. I mean, we can look at it, but, So consequently, I think the $150,000 is a great start. We're not asking the taxpayers to pay for it up front. We're bringing it out of undesignated fund balance. So consequently, either we give the money back and it's a small percentage on the budget, or we take the money and hang on to it for these projects that we plan out. That's my thought on it.
Anybody else? All right, so we have two options. So we can agree to approve a 2.97 budget with an SRO and include a capital improvement fund of 150,000. Or option 2 would be to raise the budget 150,000 for a 3.64%. So how about we do thumbs up or thumbs down? How about option 1? All right. Option 2. Doug, you have questions?
I'm still like the crock pot thinking here. I'm not sure.
Matt?
I came in late with a thumbs up. I'm with you, Doug.
He's sleep deprived.
So all right, okay, sorry, I'm trying to help with the thinking here. So next week, you have to approve. So we have to have the cost centers solid. We can add a question there, which is to improve for the capital, approve for the capital fund, the Libby Tozer envelope windows, so that and the public knows this is what the money is for, right? Then there's no guessing game. There's no, they're going to take this 150,000, they're going to end up doing something else. That makes you feel more transparent about that. And then if the public votes down Article 18 and we don't have the 150, we'll have to talk about how are we going to do some of these improvements. If they do approve it, great. We move forward, right? The other things that we obviously going to look at the SRRF grant again. That is coming up for this year. I did speak to Harriman Associates yesterday to talk about their putting a proposal for us to do an SRRF grant for a big ticket item at Libby Tozer, the roof or air quality. There's certain parameters. So I think the public needs to hear we're not just looking at unfunded balance or we're looking to raise budgets. We're also looking for grant funding that we feel if we get a really good application done, we could qualify for. So I think people have to understand there's buckets we're looking at. We're not just relying on one bucket.
Doug?
I'm still trying to work out how this goes. So I kind of picture that undesignated fund balance is kind of like the change jar at your house. If right? When you spend a little or you get a little bit more, you just whatever's left in the pockets, you put it in the change jar. The capital improvement fund is just designating the change jar before we start adding to it, and then we add as we go through the year. What would be the alternative if we just added to the change jar, and then at the end of the year, we're like, oh, it's full. Can we now, we know in our mind we wanted to spend the 150,000. What would be the process to use whatever it ended up in the change jar at the end of the year in like May or June? They would need to do what?
The taxpayer doesn't have a voice in that.
They don't have a voice. Can we still put it towards capital improvements if, as we've been adding change to the year, we're like, oh, we only have 125,000 from on whatever the general undistributed funds, right? Is that what?
So when
In the change jar.
Samantha's looking at the number, that's what she's looking at, is she's anticipating what we may have, because that's projecting, right? We're
Yeah.
projecting right now. We know that we have to have 550,000 for unfund balance, and we have to protect that the following year you'll want at least $550,000.
Yeah.
And then she says, okay, so, and you want to have at least over 3% because that's fiscally responsible in case suddenly we have a shutdown and we have to do something with fund balance. So then that's why we came with 150, is we're feeling comfortable that at 150,000 to start the capital improvement, and we had already identified a project for it.
Well, I guess all I'm seeing is the two options are we ask for the money ahead of time, like get a loan ahead of time to pay for these capital improvements and put it in the budget, and then have it distributed to us so we can raise the budget to 3.6. We're basically asking for the 150,000 ahead, saying we want that, put it in the budget. Or the second option is capital improvement, where we label the change jar of the undistributed funds.
Undesignated.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's already
So-
money in the
The
change
money's already
jar.
there.
Yeah.
So 550,000 in the change jar
Yeah.
has been put to reduce the taxes.
Okay.
The
And
other, yeah.
So the capital improvement fund is basically saying we want it. We want, if 150,000 makes it into that change jar again, we're going to use it for
It's
improvement.
already going to be in there.
Using the 150 that's
It's already
here,
in
right?
there. It's
So
already in there.
There's 150,000 overage, and it's applying it specifically to do the envelope.
But we have to announce that before. What would happen if we found that at the end of the budget in May or June, when the budget ends, that the change jar was full enough that we could do the capital improvements? What's the process for that?
They're undesignated. They
They're
have to be
undesignated.
designated.
They have to be
Correct.
designated.
Yes.
Okay, so we can't do anything.
Right, we
with
can't get to the end and say,
undesignated
oh,
funds.
we have this much money, we're gonna go do this. No.
So
you
it
have
sits-
to, this capital improvement designates it to
It
a fund that
allows
you
us
can use.
to legally spend.
What is
Correct.
what is the
Yes.
amount that we can expend without approval?
What do you mean?
So what amount of excess money in the budget can we spend without approval? I'm seeing 0, however, we know that that's not the case based on purchases made last year at the end of the budget season.
Correct.
So
Right.
what is
You can transfer costs.
transfer
Oh, you can
costs?
go between
Yeah.
costs. Yeah, the like
By
3%.
statute, you can't overspend what the voters authorize you in the budget. So that's another good reason why you have fund balance, because you can't overspend it. So you're always going to have something left, whether it's a penny, 100,000. By statute, you can't overspend what the voters authorize the budget to be at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Right. So what I'm saying is when you have leftover funds, how much of the leftover are you allowed to expend on?
So what you're saying is when we hit June, which is, I think you're talking about the truck,
Mhm.
in June, we look to help offset things in the next budget so that we can help with things that we need. You're exactly right. So as long as we stay within the cost center and we spend it accordingly to that cost center, the voters are not approving that.
And how much, but you can move money between cost centers?
Yeah.
5%.
So if you move 5% from multiple cost centers into the maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could just pay for your $150,000.
Yeah.
Well,
In defense of that, there's some bills that are usually larger that it's easy to get up to the 5%
Yeah.
just between different bills having seen that. Is it like they budget for a certain, say, electricity went up or whatever. If you need to move a little bit to cover the
No,
adjustment in the bill. Yeah, yeah.
I understand.
So
No, I know what you're saying, Scott, definitely. Yeah, you could say, we're not going, here's the challenge, is doing something like the envelope has to be done by June 30th. So if May, you're saying, oh, we can get that 150, well, now you got to go out to bid, you got to get the contract, and you got to get it going. Right, so that's the challenge of that. We purchase things before June 30th.
Yeah.
hmm That's what we're doing to do the flooring at Libby Tozier. That's a perfect example. We looked at it and we're like, okay, we think we can swing the flooring and get it done by June 30th if it closes. So that's a perfect example of saying something came up, we're doing this, we've got to fix it. So that would be a good example. I mean, it's hard. You're doing a budget almost 8 months before you're implementing it. You know, so this is our best thinking. Can things happen? They sure can happen. And that's what's really hard with this. It's all kind of based on patterns, past experience, things that have happened, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a perfect scenario.
I know in the past we've had to move money in the special ed because
Oh,
we've
yeah.
had people move in.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Transportation. I mean, there's all different things.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even discussed our long-term plan for Libby Tozier. I kind of
Exactly.
almost want to push this off for another year, see how things go with the transition with Carrie Ricker, and see, because if the student headcount continues to go down and our budget continues to go up, I mean, maybe we're going to have to close that school too. And, you know, do you want to spend that much money and you're just going to close it in 4 years, 3 years?
But I don't even think there's a place to put them if we did.
Well, I don't know. We thought about closing both at one point, didn't we?
I know, but where would you put them all? Right now, it's going to be
recommended.
tight. Right, Steve?
Recommended closing both. As
Yeah,
opposed to
the
thinking.
committee recommended closing both.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a place to put them. I can't imagine they were going to put them on the street. But
Well, it wasn't recommended because we had a place to put them. It was recommended because both schools are in rough shape. There's a difference there. There was no recommendation because we know we can
but
put
what's
them
going
all
to happen
somewhere
3
else.
years from now, 4 years from now, 5
Yeah.
years from now?
But we can't wait. We have to do something now.
I think
have to do
I think
something
that's
now.
what's happened. If you waited and waited and waited, you waited for the referendum that didn't pass. Now you're waiting for it. You know, if you keep waiting, nothing ever gets done.
Right.
And we're only committing for a year. So like,
Right.
it's not like we're committed to this for the rest of the RSU.
Correct.
So how do we feel about doing a capital improvement fund then? Thumbs up. Yeah. Undecided?
I would say, I guess I'll give you a thumbs up, and we'll see how it goes at
Right.
At the public hearing.
the public
The
hearing.
public hearing.
We'll gauge
That's
the public's response from there.
Do you want a question next week that, can I have a thumbs up? Do you want a question next week on how that should be expended for capital
Yes.
improvement? Would you like a question on that? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Is there any opportunity to use some fund balance to then make a reduction, or are we just going to go for
We're
this?
already doing that.
We're
You're
doing
using
it. She already did.
550,000.
550,000.
Yeah, I know, but now you're adding 150,000.
No,
No,
Oh,
it's already from,
fund balance.
So really, if they say yes to the capital improvement, it's 700,000.
Correct. It would be
Right.
reducing the amount of fund balance available. I
put
think
it
is your
in that
point.
one. Yeah, I guess I don't see the difference. Just put it in the budget. Whatever. We'll see how it goes at the meeting.
Okay.
all right.
All right. Thank you for the feedback and the
Thank you.
conversation.
All right, we'll move on to, we have no other business tonight. We'll move on to committee reports. And tonight is Personnel and Policy Committee.
Yes, we did meet. We had a really productive meeting. We reviewed 4 policies that will come to you all for first reading. Those are IKF, which is graduation requirements. We did just approve this one last year around this time, but you'll see there's a brief change in how we identify our Greek honors for graduation. And then JICH, which is drug and alcohol use by students. This was a policy that you saw for first reading that got kicked back to the policy committee. So we've made some changes and it will come back to you for first reading. And then 2 new policies, DKC, which is expense authorization and reimbursement. And this has to do with the fact that the RSU does receive federal funds. So these 2 policies, DKC and DKCR, expense reimbursement procedures for travel, are required for any RSU or agency that receives federal funds. We also are in the process of reviewing policy JB, which is transgender and gender expansive students. The policy committee is not going to meet again just because of timing of the budget, but this will be the first policy that we review and bring back to you for the next school year, I guess is how I'll word it. Any questions?
Thank you. We'll have committee reports April 30th, finance and facilities, and curriculum and instruction and technology on April 30th as well. Board member comments tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to need the microphone for this. Yeah, I'm going to say that I really appreciate the work that went into looking at closing Sabattis. And I know it's not going to be easy after being here through the closing of Wales, the building of the middle school, the moving of the middle school, the forming of the RSU, the different realignments that we've had over the years. No move goes without problems, and I get it. I went to school at Sabattis starting in 8th grade in 1967 and graduated from 8th grade there and went to a brand new high school at Oak Hill when it first opened. And I didn't have a gymnasium or a cafeteria until 6th grade, which was about, I'd say, 74, 75. And then when we built the middle school, we tore down 3/4 of Sabattis Primary because there was 8 classrooms upstairs and 8 classrooms downstairs.
And a basement.
Well, I'm counting the basement
the
because we were
classrooms were in
using
the
that, and I get it. It's hard to close a school, and a lot of people have fond memories of a school, but every building, as hard as it is to say, has a usefulness that ends, and if we don't do what we need to do at Libby Tozier, we're going to be put in a situation where we don't have choices. We're going to be reactionary instead of being proactive and looking forward. And I get it, Scott. I think we do have to look at, because we're going to be in that building a lot longer than we thought. My plan, the school board's plan at Sabattis was after we opened the middle school, Sabattis was going to close in 5 years. And look where we are. 2025, and we're finally getting it closed. So I want to let the community know that I understand that, change is hard, but through all the moves and everything that I've seen, the kids are the easiest. Usually it's, the parents and the adults that have a hard time with change. The kids, they adapt, they're going to be with their friends. They're going to be, have the same teachers. We're not, cutting staff or moving a lot. So, yeah. I think it's a good opportunity for the RSU to really take a step forward. And I hope that everybody, has a good move. But I know there's going to be bumps along the way.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just quickly, I wanted to address sort of a rumor circulating around regarding the closure. I'm speaking for myself here, but I think the board would share my statement that this is not a tricky way to trick you into a new school this is a different board than it was when we were exploring a new addition. This board, I believe, is much more fiscally responsible, and we're obviously looking at every avenue to save money and to still provide excellent education for the students of the community. But that is not something the board is trying to do at this point or any point in the near future that I can see. That's it.
Thank you, Scott. I want to say that I spent 34 years teaching at Sabattis. I started at the elementary school, and I got the last classroom, the last new classroom on that wing. And then I was there when they tore everything down and the kids left and went to the other building. And then at one time we had kindergarten over at Our Lady of the Rosary because it wasn't big enough. And then we had portables, and it has been a long haul.
Yeah.
And I have fond memories there too. And then I went to Carrie Ricker, and you think about leaving a school, but you can always, the kids are always there. You're with your other educators, and you're together. So as long as our interests are about the children, that's what we need to focus on. And yes, Scott, I don't believe we are trying to get a new school, and I saw those rumors as well. Our goal is to provide a safe learning environment for our children in this community with the money that we have, that we can afford. Anybody else?
I just wanted to thank everyone who was involved, going all the way back with the consolidation subcommittee, and all the way up till today. I know especially a lot of department directors, just a lot of time putting things on paper, getting numbers together, research. Some people have moved on that were involved. Hope they know that we appreciate their efforts too. And I know it's made for a very complicated budget season, and it's nice to see that we're getting closer to the end. So, thank you.
I think our district is finally healing. It's starting to heal. It's glad to see that. All right. We have no executive sessions tonight. Our future meetings are April 16th. That meeting will be a special meeting. It's at 5:30. It's just to vote on the budget. And then we have a meeting April 30th. And then the public meeting will be May 14th. And without objection, I'd like to declare the meeting adjourned at, what is it,
8:29.
8:29. It's a lot earlier than I thought.
Enough experience, enough